Welcome to a Brighter Day podcast with your host, Beverly Knox Davis, recorded at the Brighter Day Hub in Historic Hoskins. This podcast shares stories of empowerment, resilience, and growth. At a Brighter Day Outreach, our vision is to create a thriving community where every youth, senior, and family in the Thomasboro, Hoskins, and Charlotte areas has secure placement and the potential to grow. Join us as we shine a light on the people and initiatives making brighter days a reality.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beverly Knox Davis, and this is the A Brighter Day podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on today for another wonderful story from the Historic Hoskins community. Today, we have the esteemed pleasure of having Zack Wyatt, the CEO for Carolina Farm Trust, with us. So, Zack, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know your schedule is super busy. We're both out here raising funds and doing things to make things better here in Hoskins and beyond. So, tell us about you and your family, because many may not know who the CEO of Carolina Farm Trust is. So, family-wise, your aspirations, goals, things like that.
Yeah, well, I was born in West Texas, in 1980, and luckily my parents decided to move when I was 4.5 to Northern Virginia, and so we had my mother worked on a polo club in West Texas in Midland, and Middleburg, Virginia has a really big polo club as well. So they just knew an attorney there, and there was a 300-acre dairy farm that had the patriarch had died in I think 79. The kids sold it to a bunch of investors and didn't know what to do with it, and so they needed someone to take care of it. So that's kind of where I grew up. It's unique to grow up on such a big parcel of land. The lake was 6 acres, but we had pigs and chickens and horses, and just the yard I had to mow was 6 acres, and that was just the riding part, let alone all
goodness.
the weed eating and push mowing and everything else. So, but I worked on my neighbor's cattle farm, and but it was also great because it was in Northern Virginia. We could be rednecks if we wanted to, or get dressed up and go to DC if we wanted to. So it was just a very diverse, very, very just unique area to grow up in.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So now I understand a little bit more about you, because I didn't know that part. So that is, it makes sense with where you landed.
Yeah.
So,
and then I have 5 kids too, which I would be remiss without saying that. So 2 boys and 3 girls, and got 2 graduating this summer. And,
awesome.
I'm very happy to be on the this end of it. Yes. I still look back and can't believe I survived
I get it.
5 kids in 7 years, and
that
changing diapers for a decade, and
so you were serious about the drop-offs and pickups, having to coordinate all of that. Mm-hmm. So tell us how from then to now, how you ended up, being the CEO of Carolina Farm Trust.
Well, I've always been, very entrepreneurial in nature. But if you ever told me when I was younger that I would work for a nonprofit, start a nonprofit, I would have been like, no. So I was I moved to Charlotte in 2003 after graduating college. Going back to Northern Virginia was just too expensive, and and literally it was, I think I had $10, in my pocket.
Sounds like my story too.
And moved here, and immediately, obviously, in 2003, the mortgage business was booming, and so started there and worked my way up on the wholesale side, and and then that cratered in 2008, and kind of had to start over again, and really happenstance got into this partnership, doing some Oracle consulting and training, and kind of started that business from kind of scratch and kind of built it up, and then as a lot of partnerships do, it went belly up, and I was on the losing end of that, and and that was about 2014, and so being kind of the sole breadwinner at that point in time, taking care of 5 kids and my wife, and basically just all my income vanished overnight, so it was a very demoralizing time period, but we all have to get knocked down
Absolutely.
on a few times, and we just have to keep going. But we had to get on EBT and SNAP, and that whole time period was just very eye opening on so many different levels, and then there was just a PSA around Lomax Farm, that just lit a little fire, and started to just really read and learn more about our food systems. And once you do that, it becomes real scary. And then talking to some farmers, makes it even more scary. It was just, one farm we were talking to, had an issue, and we wanted to help, and so went to a few other nonprofits to just kind of see how we could collaborate, but no one was really interested. So started Carolina Farm Trust in spring of 2015, and I think our IRS birthday is June 9th, is when we got our IRS letter.
Okay.
And it's it's been crazy. It's once you kind of understand. I mean, most people don't understand that food and agriculture run the whole world.
Absolutely.
The wars we fight, whether you are all the poverty, everything is related to food and ag. I don't care what political problem you have. I don't care what social problem we have, environmental problem. If you really go down to the source, it's always in the dirt.
Always in the dirt.
That's kind of thing. The thing is of going. I mean, I have no interest of of treating problems. I mean, that's just doesn't want to wake me up in the morning, or why I wake up in the morning. It's really kind of going and trying to solve some of these problems. And food and ag is the environmental solution. Food and ag is our health and human services solution. Food and ag is our education solution. Food and ag, really is just something that we need to take a lot more attention to, because we have literally given that responsibility away. And I think as COVID hit, and we're eggs, the price of that.
Oh, goodness, yes.
I mean, the war in Ukraine. I mean, who thought getting 60% of the world's wheat from one place was a good idea?
Right.
So when we talk about inflation, I mean, tariffs, and it's pretty scary once you realize that if those trucks don't come, we starve.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
And those grocery stores only have about 3 days of supply on normal buying habits before that thing is empty.
Wow.
So that's a real motivating factor of, trying to get our regional food system built out, and supporting our farmers, and supporting people.
Okay. Well, I know we connected a little over 3 years ago, close to 4. And I was like, this guy wants to talk, and he's from Carolina Farm Trust. And I immediately thought you wanted to talk about the community garden. It was my first thought. I was like, what in the world? Who knew that you had this big plan to have a location right here in the heart of the Hoskins community? I thought, oh my goodness, this is finally going to be something, a solution that will help us in making sure that we are addressing the food insecurities in this area. So truly, truly, truly excited after having that initial conversation with you. I know it has been a journey to get that facility up and running. So tell us about that journey and how you got to a place of even getting the building, getting it started, and then just tell us the journey.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just waking up every day and putting yourself out there.
Yes.
I mean, I would say in anything like this, whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, or anything, I mean, it's 1,000 coffees before you can really start, getting
Yes.
things moving. We had a strategic advisor that we had met, or I had met, I would say 2017, 2018, maybe. And that's the thing, you never know who is going to call you up one day and say, hey, I have this person that can change some things. And The distribution platform has been a priority for a long time because our farming community just doesn't have it. We have to have something that scales. We have to have a distribution, kind of system that makes sure our farming community is paid a living wage. And then we also need something that's easy for them to work with. And then on the other side is we have to make sure that we have a food system that everybody can participate in an easy way. I mean, it has to be just as easy as walking down the street to a McDonald's.
That's true.
Or else it's just not going to work because we can scream about it all day long, but until it's accessible and easy, it's just not going to happen.
That's true.
I would say around 2019 in my wish list is like I really wanted this facility to be in West Charlotte. It needed to be close to 85. We wanted it to be in a community that it could grow with. And then in April of 2021, I got a phone call and she was like, I was at lunch with my best friend and telling her about you and you were looking for warehouse space and she's like, well, my family has warehouse space. And she's like, well, you want to look at it? And I'm like, well, not really, because we are drowning and I have nothing to offer. There was just no way, that we would be able to kind of entertain something like that. I mean, well, let's go look at it. And I was like, all right. And so, April of 21 was the first time like we set foot on site.
Okay.
And Mr. Lee and his daughter, we toured the both buildings, and it was just very emotional because it was perfect. It was everything that we wanted. He was telling us about all the history, what he used to do, and he looked at me. He's like, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Mr. Lee, this is amazing, but I got nothing, literally nothing." Right. He's like, "No, I mean, what are the possibilities here?" And again, I was just like, I have no cash. Like I have nothing to offer.
How many ways for Sunday do I say this?
and he's like, no, like what can you do? And I was like, all right, well, let me get to the no, and so I can get out of here. Because it was just disappointing because I could just see it. I could visualize like everything. And I was like, well, first of all, I mean, this is April. I was like, you would have to take it off the market at least until June or July to give me some time. Then I would hopefully be able to maybe lock it up for the rest of the year. You'd have to give me a 25, 30-year lease on very generous terms. And then maybe I could do something. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, all right.
Okay. Wow.
And so I immediately, called my friends at Lowe's and was like, I need $30,000 to lock this building up for 6 months and to get some drawings done. And they're like, well, write it up. And so, so I did that, and they cut me the check about 2 weeks later, and we were able to lock it up in June. And it was I was very lucky that I was bold, and in April of 2020, had just reached out cold to our county manager, Dina DiOrio, and kind of outlined this vision. And basically was like, well, I need county money. I need county land. We need to do this. I mean, COVID is just slapping us in the face with how important all this stuff is. And she's like, we're busy at the moment, but keep me updated. So the moment that we had the property in hand and it was kind of real, we reached out to Dina, and we reached out to Commissioner Dunlap, who was the board chair at the time, and kind of outlined the vision, and so we got the drawings done. And really the project and the, American Rescue Plan Act came together perfectly. I mean, this would not have happened, without that funding opportunity. And luckily the Board of County Commissioners, based on staff support, approved the initial funding, in January of 22. And the city came back, really on top of that and able for us to get started.
That's great.
And then, that journey began. And so anyone who understands rezoning and permitting it took us a long time to get all that done. But and in reality, not really. I mean, it feels like a long time, but when we talk to other, developers and partners and really with all the challenges that we had and faced, it all happened relatively quickly compared to things that could have gone wrong.
Right.
I mean, we were dealing with supply chain issues. The moment the funding was secured, inflation went through the roof. So the whole cost of the entire project tripled, pretty much within a week. I mean, all of our electrical equipment went from $100,000 to $500,000. I mean, it was just, it was a lessons to be learned, all the way around, kind of going through the process. But permitting took about a year and a half, and then once we got going, it took us about 6 months, and then we had to fight and crawl through inspections to get our certificate of occupancy, and so very happy that we were able to at least start doing some activation late last year. It was very humbling to get a call from World Central Kitchen on October 4th, asking us to produce 1,500 hot meals the next morning. And we didn't hit that mark, but we got to 1,000. Then settled on around 750 a day, and really were able to support our friends in Western North Carolina with 23,269 meals, hot meals, delivered up to the Boone area for World Central Kitchen to distribute. But it really just captivated on how important facilities like the one we're building are.
Yeah. Well, an amazing journey. I've been there, kind of watched everything come just as far as it has, but understanding that there's still so much more to go. And the burning question is, how will Carolina Farm Trust address the food insecurities in the Hoskins community? So could you speak on that for just a moment?
Yeah, I mean, we have been working with USDA for a year and a half now to get our EBT and SNAP capabilities, and we're getting really close. We finally found a human to help us through the process, and they came out the last week to kind of do their inspection on that side. So that's kind of a big piece of it. I mean, we were never going to be a food bank or a food pantry type of model. It was always going to be, a market, atmosphere. So we've been doing, whether it's raining or it's cold or it's snowing, we've been out there doing the pop-up markets. I think we were doing it on Friday evenings for a little while in last fall. We've been doing them Wednesday, kind of afternoons. Once it starts to get warmer, we're going to hopefully move it more back into the evening. But also kind of looking for, guidance, from community on when the best times are. So I think once we're hoping we'll have our EBT and SNAP capability hopefully by May, if all goes well. It's not us. We're just waiting on, USDA, and if anybody's watching the news, you can understand all the government slowdowns and everything else has been, impacting everybody. But we will participate in the dollar for dollar match, that the county offers on that, so that, and I don't think they've capped it again. I think it used to be a dollar for dollar up to 20.
Okay.
But during COVID, they removed that, and I don't think they put it back. So it basically just doubles your buying power on your EBT and SNAP. And we're also, designing some different programs, as well. We, depending on what USDA comes back with cuts to EBT and SNAP, is the dollar for dollar match going to be enough anymore? We know it's not. We're already trying to develop some programming to convince other funders to kind of contribute to those pots of money. So maybe it's a $2 to one, $3 to one. How do we create programming for those who are not eligible for EBT and SNAP for a variety of reasons? Just because you qualify just above EBT and SNAP and don't qualify for it, how do we kind of develop some things like that? But those are just ongoing things that we're really looking at, we're
then,
still a small team, so it's not like we have an army of people, there to develop all this stuff. I mean, we're small but very mighty, and so part of phase two has a mobile grocery store that's part of that, and we hope that will be a big game changer as well.
and what's the time frame for that?
It's all funding dependent. I mean, we are permitted. So the moment we have funds in the bank, Balfour Beatty can get started. But it's just it's a very difficult time right now. The hard part, typically government is your stable partner. In anything, there's always things that happen. But when government becomes unstable, everyone else freezes
Yeah, that's true.
and doesn't know
That's
what
very
to
true.
do.
That's very true.
So
So I know from the community's perspective,
Yeah.
they're asking, we want to be able to come and shop. When are we going to be able to come and, get the fresh produce and, buy groceries, even if there isn't, the EBT and SNAP, just to be able to walk up. And then the other component to taking what they're purchasing there and then having someone meal prep for them. I know that's a part of this too. So what kind of time frame are we looking at, or your best guesstimate at this point? Because I know there have been some timelines put in place, and for all of those reasons you mentioned, it hasn't happened. So everybody's just waiting with bated breath. They're ready for the doors to swing open and they be able to shop there, every day of the week. So when do you think?
Well, I mean, again, we've never waited. I mean, I don't think we've ever said no to any request, that's been asked. And again, we're there. We'll be there Wednesday, tomorrow, from 12 to 4. I mean, I think our team is asked repeatedly, when are the most appropriate times, but again, it's a two-way street, because it takes us payroll and human capital to set that market up outside. I got to pay someone to be there. So if it doesn't, I mean, we're committed to doing it and we're going to do it, but the more we get participation, the more we can do.
So I think from that aspect, the pop-up market is great, but I think people they're wanting to know when those doors are going to swing open. Some of the proofs or printouts that they had, or the boards what it's going to look like. When are those things going to come to fruition to where they can actually walk in on any day, not just 12 to 4 on Wednesday or whatever day of the week for a pop-up market? So those types of questions, and then addressing, that I think in some people's mind will address the food insecurities, because now we'll have a place in the community where they can go shopping for fresh fruits and vegetables and meats and different things like that right here in the heart of Hoskins. So from that perspective, I think it's great that in the interim that we have the pop-up market. I love it. And everything has been great. So what are you thinking from a time frame perspective? And I know there's a lot of variables in there, but
All I can say, Beverly, is we have pushed and we're continuing to push. It would have been very easy for us to wait to get permits, but we did not. And so the moment we get funding, the construction process will be about 6 months.
okay.
So if we get funding now, it'll be 6 months from now. If I don't get the funding until summer, it'll be 6 months from summer. If I don't get funding until next year, it'll be 6 months from there. I mean, the permits don't last forever either.
Right.
So then we would have to kind of start all over again on that process. And if we have to start all over then we have to go back and redraw everything, because there's been a lot of building codes and stuff that's changed that went into effect. We're working very hard, on, kind of securing the funding to move forward with phase two. But
And that's
there's
considered
nothing else
phase
I can
two.
do. Yeah.
I just want everybody to hear that. That's considered phase two.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of variables included in that. So, I get the questions. I was like, I do not work for Carolina Farm Trust. So we have to go to the source and ask and make sure that we're speaking and having clarity on what is to come and what the plan is. Many just want to know what's the plan, what's the timeline, and not understanding all of the
Well, we're
variables.
hoping, again, I mean, that's kind of where it would be great to get some more community involvement, especially as it starts to get warmer.
Okay.
I mean, we're very open to, doing the pop-up market, multiple times a week.
Okay.
The weekend, we have the food truck, we can, there's lots of activation, that we can do in the interim.
Okay.
But it's just understanding, what the community is wanting.
But that requires engagement. And I know we've had some issues there too from the engagement side of it all. And now you have this amazing operations manager, Tony, and we've been lockstep. So I appreciate her. Even, the items that are being delivered here to the food pantry here at A Brighter Day. It's just been fantastic. And I know some communication, it's a culture thing. So we have to make sure that, we're providing things that the community wants, and getting their feedback. I've been able to share lots of great information with Tony on, the menu at the food truck and the things that they would like to see at the pop-up market. So we've had very good conversations, and oh my goodness, definitely the chef's table was amazing. We invited the community and everybody had rave reviews. I got tons of text messages afterwards. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for picking me as one of the 11 to attend with you. So I think as long as we keep that level of engagement and making sure that, they see a face from Carolina Farm Trust. Tony is very inviting and very kind, and everyone loves her. She's coming tonight to the community meeting, and we'll be able to share and answer any questions that people have on site. I think that's the main thing, once you start talking about something so amazing, people just want it right now, and they don't understand all of the steps that are required to get there. But we do appreciate you following what, God told you to do, because I understand it had to be God. And then just being obedient to that. And then, of course, your journey, you get it. You've been in a place where some of these services you need it yourself. And now, you're in this position to be able to put it in place for others. And I think that's commendable. One thing I do want just to give you open floor because, there have been some things that weren't so positive that were circulating in the community. And I just would like to put things to bed, just making sure that, Carolina Farm Trust is here for the better of this area, for this entire community. And, the reason I asked you on the podcast today is to put some things to rest so that people will hear directly from you or Tony when they see her, just to make sure that they're getting it straight. The bottom line is, yes, originally there were some dates put out, but as you've heard, everyone, there are variables that will change your dates at times. So that's where we are. So I'm going to, in the last minute or so that we have here, I'm just going to give you the floor to just speak on, just being raw and real with the people and just letting them know, your heart, your intentions. Yes, you plan to address the food insecurities in this area. And yes, you do plan to put these programs in place, and it's not about external to Hoskins. So I'm going to be quiet and let you speak.
Well, can you give me a little more direction? I mean,
yes. So I just want, look at the camera, say, I am. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is it's taken, all of what you've already mentioned here. And regardless of if there's ever a rumor, let me tell you, he will pick up the phone and he will talk and he will share. So I want to put to bed anybody that has come up with anything that is outside of what you have shared here today. and leave it at that, and then just allow what we're seeing come to pass to do just that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the moment that this whole idea was real, I immediately called the city and said, who was the community leader in Historic Hoskins? And, they gave me your name and number, and you were the first person that I called. I don't even think you were probably one of the, outside of just an internal group, you were the first person that we called. Right. And so the whole, we always, wanted to and continue to want to be kind of embedded in the community. And that takes time, and again, actions speak, and the hard part with these type of projects is there's just so much behind the scenes that have to get started. When we got in permitting, they were like, okay, you need to redo the water line to the street. Well, I don't have water line frontage at the street, so I have to get, the corner store in front of us to give us an easement, and the way that it was designed and we needed, there's no way I wouldn't have given us the easement. And so, okay, like, what are we going to do now? Right. And so it took us almost 6 months to work with Charlotte Water, just to kind of redesign everything to get all of our water from behind us instead of in front of us.
I understand.
And so, there were all sorts, we went through a whole rezoning, and so, and again, for us, when we kind of come into, projects like this, I'm naive every day. If I wasn't, I couldn't get out of bed, but we're always trying to be very aggressive with timelines, but I think even during the those phases where construction wasn't happening, I know we got to host you on a few events, absolutely. And we were able to kind of coordinate some Thanksgiving drives and things of that nature, and so it's always been an asset, whether with all the work in the background, but the moment that we got. Just things happen. We wouldn't have been able to host you with the mural, if we had, hit the timeline that we wanted.
Everything played a part.
So once we started construction, things moved really quickly. Yes. In the way that, and again, inflation is kind of out of our control. That's kind of why we had to, do it in 2 phases. And we had to have kind of the infrastructure to allow the retail market to kind of operate. Right. So again, I understand that it's taken a little bit longer than what we wanted, but in the grand scheme of things, it's moving quickly. And so we're very happy to host you in June.
Yes, very excited about that.
And again, the door is open. We're not hard to find. We pick up the phone, and so if there are questions that want to be asked, we're more than happy to answer them. And kind of do what we can, and we're, pretty open, about everything. And that's all if there's something specific to address, I'm happy to, but, that's kind of our line on it.
And with that, I think that's a great spot to end, because I'm that person, go straight to the horse and make sure that, everything is put out on the table and addressed. So thank you so much for being here today and addressing some of the questions of the community and all that Carolina Farm Trust is doing and plans to do here in the Historic Hoskins community. So today, we're just happy that you all joined us for the A Brighter Day podcast. Just some more wonderfulness that is happening and will only improve and get better here in Hoskins. So please continue to support. You can find this podcast on Apple Radio, on YouTube, all of the social media platforms. And again, my name is Beverly Knox Davis, and we thank you for joining us today. Have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in to A Brighter Day podcast with Beverly Knox Davis. Together, we're working toward a community where everyone has the opportunity to grow and thrive. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and join us next time as we continue to inspire brighter days for all. See you soon.